Welcome to Gartner ThinkCast. I'm Alexis Wierenga, and today we're diving into what the customer experience looks like in 2025. We're joined by Gartner Distinguished VP Analyst Don Scheibenreif to help break down what customers now expect, how AI agents and machine customers will continue to develop, and how CEOs should respond in an increasingly complex business landscape. Don, welcome in.
Thanks, Alexis. It's great to be here.
Yeah, great to talk with you today. So, to kick things off at a high level, how are CEOs thinking about customer expectations in 2025?
So, based on our CEO research, they're expecting that customers are going to want products that are easier to use, more customizable, and actually infused with more AI. So that was a very interesting piece of the research that we found. We also believe that CEOs probably don't understand customers as well as they think they do. We asked a question about defining customer experience, and we were shocked at the answers that we got back. And I think overall, Alexis, I think that CEOs know that customers are important, but they're also confused by them. It's
Mm.
one of the interesting threads that we teased out of the research.
Yeah, so within that vein, what's been one of the surprising findings related to that or a misconception that's come out of the research?
So one of the biggest ones was around price sensitivity. About a third of CEOs actually recognized that they may have taken price increases too far. So this is
Mm.
before all of the current trade actions that are taking place around the world. So think about when we did this survey last year. We were still in the middle or recovering from inflation. So a lot of CEOs think, well, maybe we took prices too far, and they're seeing it with their customers. Their customers are kind of pushing back. And one of the more interesting quotes that we got from the CEO of the Coca-Cola company is that companies have to earn the right to take price increases, which we think is a great attitude. A lot of companies just took price because they could.
Yeah, just immediately
Yeah.
not maybe thinking through the consequences of what that does to the customer relationship.
Yeah, absolutely right. And in some products you can take price and get away with it, but some you can't, like soft drinks.
Yeah.
We all, how much are we paying for different everyday products today? And sometimes people just don't like it, and they end up buying less. So I think it's a fine line for CEOs, especially now, to maintain profitability, but also maintain the relationship with the customers. It's not an easy task that they're faced with.
Were there any other unexpected survey results? Anything that stood out to you?
Well, I think that the one thing that we talked about is we wanted to get their read on machine customers, which I know we'll talk about in a moment. This idea that machines can actually take on the behaviors of human customers. But we found that almost half of them either have a strategy for machines or what you might call AI agents, will have a strategy within the next 2 years, which was a shock to us because it's an emerging topic and emerging technology. But the fact that CEOs are recognizing that machines will be part of the purchasing process was also um, personally a pleasant surprise because I've been working on this, but also for our clients to kind of take this seriously.
So, I mean, given that you've done a lot of work covering machine customers in particular, which has been ramping up, given everything you just mentioned, maybe let's take a step back. What is a machine customer, and how does this tie into everything?
So, our textbook definition is a machine customer is a non human economic actor that obtains goods or services in exchange for payment. So, it's essentially, we are delegating the things that we do as human customers to a machine. And when I use the term machine, it could be a robot, your Roomba at home, it could be the vehicle, or an AI, a virtual AI agent. But the idea that machines now will be part of the purchasing process is something Gartner's been covering for 10 years now. And it's been interesting to see how it's been developing with the advances in generative AI
Mhm.
and now agentic AI. But I think the important piece of it is we're entering a world where your best customers may actually not be human. And that's
Mm.
different for a lot of people. They're kind of still trying to wrap their heads around it.
I mean, given what you mentioned, it sounds like it's something that maybe is closer to all of us than we would maybe realize, given it's in our homes with our Roombas or
Yeah.
in our cars and things like that too. Do you feel like CEOs have the right grasp on it then when it comes to factoring this into their business plans and moving forward?
So we do actually. There was two questions in the CEO survey that also were kind of big for us. One is 77% of CEOs believe that AI is the number one technology that will impact their industry over the next 3 years. And then another data point is 97% of CEOs plan to use AI to augment their own performance. So again, these are very big numbers that we're seeing here that tell us that CEOs have embraced. I actually call it AI on the brain is what CEOs have right now, and that extends to operations. It extends to your personal life. We're seeing developments like in with OpenAI, Perplexity, Google, Amazon, who are using these AI agents to assist you in the shopping process. So again, we CEOs are very bullish on AI, and I think it extends to a lot of part of their operations as well.
Given that AI agents are this hot topic lately, all around, and that CEOs are thinking about them and they're bullish on them, how do you see it then maybe coming from that other customer experience side where maybe people don't want to interact with an AI agent? Or do you think CEOs are fully understanding how their audience is responding to things like AI agents and
Uh,
having the right understanding?
I'm not sure just yet, to be honest with you, Alexis. We are starting to collect data on that, but we know from Gartner's consumer research panel that there are about, I'd say, 20% of consumers who don't want anything to do with AI. But the vast majority of them are people that we call enthusiasts who are embracing the technology. That's about, I'd say, 25%. Then another 35% are what we call pragmatists. These are people that they're kind of accepting the fact that I can't really get away from AI, so I'm just going to figure out how to use it effectively. So the wrong assumption would be that everybody wants AI. That's simply not true. So that is something else that we will be tracking over time is how people are willing to use this technology.
And then kind of how would you separate out like the broader idea from machine customers? How, like, where's the overlap? What are the key distinctions to keep in mind? Maybe that doesn't all get
Yeah.
looped into one big category.
So when we first came up with the idea of a machine customer, we knew that AI was going to be a big part of it. We just didn't know how. In fact, we published the book that you see behind me in January 3rd, 2023. And literally 2 weeks after that is when all the chat GPT stuff started exploding. And we had a couple of people ask us, "Hey, did you know about this?" And I said, "We're smart, but we're not that smart." No, we did not know about it. So we actually ended up doing a second edition of the book in September of 2023 to account for the impact of generative AI.
Mhm.
So what's interesting about generative AI and agentic AI is we do see them accelerating the development of machines as customers.
Mm.
From a generative AI standpoint, these chatbots, for example, are providing much more information, much more tailored to the question being asked, to the point where some chatbots are able to answer the majority of inbound customer interactions, which is pretty stunning because usually it's 10 to 20%. Now, with agentic AI, what's important to understand is that it implies that the system can make decisions without you. It's autonomous. And all we're seeing right now are very simple transactions. So think about OpenAI's operator. It buys something at the store for you. It can actually fill out a form. It can buy a website or make an appointment for you. The same thing is true with Google and even the new Amazon tools. So the functionality is very limited, and that we want to be very clear about that. But it is an important step in the direction of machines and AI agents actually doing more for us as consumers and buyers. So that to me is super exciting.
Mhm. Stepping back a little as we talk about machines and AI, what are you hearing clients ask about when it comes to the human machine relationship?
So we've done a lot of work in this area starting back in 2023. Mary Masalio, my colleague, has done a lot of great work in this area. People are not thinking about it. They are just saying, hey, we're going to put this technology in and just let it rip. And we're going to focus on efficiency. But what we have been talking about at Gartner is that you are in a relationship with machines. You may view them just as tools,
Mhm.
but as uh, the AI programs get smarter and smarter, they're becoming your friend. They're becoming a protector. They're becoming an advocate. So what we're asking clients to do is when you introduce new technology, AI technology specifically into the enterprise, are you paying attention to two things? One, the relationship between your employees and the technology or the machines, and the same thing with customers. And right now, people are very open to it. They're not thinking about it. That's part of our job. We have to get them to think about it. So it's actually a very exciting part of our research.
So it sounds like it's kind of this passive relationship that people are in without even realizing it maybe fully.
Yeah, yeah, I would say, I mean, you can ask yourself when you use applications that are smarter,
Mhm.
how does it feel? Do you feel like they know you better and they can do more for you, or are you creeped out by it? And everybody's got a line, and it changes by situation. I, for one, have been making greater use of some of the generative AI tools in my job at Gartner. At first, I was kind of cautious about it, but now I've embraced it. But it took a while for me to get comfortable with that, and that's gonna be true with everybody. How much do you want to turn over to a machine to do on your behalf versus what you like to do?
Yeah, that key part. So stressing that importance of still keeping the human side intact. Can you touch a bit more on how CEOs shouldn't lose sight of that and prioritizing the human in the midst of all this excitement about AI?
Yeah, one of the things that we talk about, Alexis, is be as rigorous about introducing humanity in your processes as technology. And I think the opportunity for CEOs is, yeah, they're totally on board with AI, but are they thinking about the human impact? And that's a question mark. We're not quite sure. There are some CEOs that are very human, employee, customer friendly, and others that are very focused on delivering on their commitments to shareholders. So I think a lot of it depends on the personality. I would hope that somebody in the organization is paying attention to this. What we suggest is a partnership between the CIO and the Chief Human Resources Officer to actually measure the emotional impact of this technology on employees, at least, and be able to take appropriate actions if things get out of whack.
Yeah, definitely. And then coming as that partnership, it's a little bit stronger when the CHRO speaks to the human side of it, tied in with the IT side of it as well to make a stronger argument to the CEO, it seems like.
Yeah, I think so. And also, CEOs are expecting the CIO to help lead the organization when it comes to the use of AI across the entire operation. But almost over 50% are expecting
Mhm.
that. But there are other leaders that are emerging. We are seeing the emergence of the chief AI officer. We're seeing the chief data officer take on responsibilities for AI, and sometimes even the chief digital officer. So what's interesting is there's not one single kind of position in an organization that the CEO turns to, but the CEO is expecting that everybody on his or her team have the savviness to use AI. And right now, that's not happening either.
Yeah, and it's not just isolated to IT either. It's
No,
every department, every executive needs to be thinking about what this looks like in their function as well, correct?
absolutely.
Mhm.
We published a note earlier this week on the CEO's perception of the AI savviness of their direct report team.
Mm.
The CIO and the chief information security officer came out on top, as you would expect, but it is a downward slope from there.
Yeah,
They have very low opinions of the savviness of other team members. But again, these are things that can be fixed. They can be,
right.
we can help, and Gartner can actually help with that.
Yeah. So looking forward and thinking about how to help with that, are there blind spots around AI and the customer experience that you think CEOs need to address immediately or that other executives can be thinking about to raise to their CEOs?
Yes, I would do. I would go back to that comment that I made before, Alexis, which is being as rigorous about introducing humanity into CX processes as the technology. So, an example of that balance between humans and machines, a personal story that I have recently. So, I travel quite a bit, and I like to stay at the Marriott chain, and I use their technology. It's actually pretty good. When I am in the Uber from the airport to the hotel, I can actually check into my room, get a digital key, completely bypass the front desk and get into my room, which is kind of cool because that's what I needed. I was really tired. I didn't want to talk to anybody. But the next morning, instead of breakfast in my room, I decided to have it in the restaurant by myself, which is fine. And what was interesting to me is that the server came up to me and says, "Hi, my name is Dwayne. What's your name?" I introduced myself, and I was dumbstruck by that because it just doesn't happen very often. So what Dwayne did that technology could not is introduce a moment of humanity into a experience. And I know it sounds like a small thing, and I don't know if that's Dwayne's personality or he was trained to do that, but it really made an impact on me because so often we go through these experiences with they feel robotic, right? Like
Yeah.
people are reading from a script. But this was a genuine moment where I felt like he saw me and said, "Hey, how's it going? Hey, make sure you want a cup of coffee to take back to your room after we're done today." That to me, we cannot lose sight of that. And if I had an advice for a CEO, technology is great, but let's not forget about humanity in this process.
Yeah, thinking of humans still as that, like,
Yeah.
front line of your organization who are gonna be creating the perceptions of your company as a whole.
Right. Now, if I could put a twist on this, Alexis, what happens when the customer is a machine? What does experience look like for a machine? So there's just an emerging idea of machine customer experience, which Gartner's written about in the past, but seems to be catching on with a few other folks. But an experience for a machine is going to be very different than an experience for a human because machines don't have emotion. So that opens up a whole nother can of worms about processes and technologies and capabilities. So that's why when we think about customer experience in 2025, it's not just about humans anymore. We have to think about machines too.
So I think that would probably tie into, like, thinking about, is your code, like, correct? Or is your page load speed? I would imagine those are some of the things the machine is prioritizing.
Yeah, yeah. So if you're selling something, and let's say I delegate the research, even the purchasing to a bot, they're going to do research on your website. And if your information is not there in the speed that I need it and the completeness that I'm looking for, I'm just going to go to the next website. I'm not even going to give it a second thought. So we've been talking a lot to clients about how you can present your information to a machine that will look different than presenting it on a normal website.
Mhm. Yeah. That's interesting because it's still something that it matters on the human side too. Like, if a page isn't loading for a person, they will also, eventually move on, but it
Yeah.
has its, probably held to a higher standard and different other parameters you have to think about with that machine customer.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the biggest thing we talk about is machines don't have emotions. So
Right.
most of the business processes we have today are human based.
Mm.
So it is really a fundamental shift in the way that we think about customers and the way that we serve them and operate for them.
Mhm. So, considering all of this, what do you think makes a successful company today given these customer expectations?
So what I would say is companies that invest pretty heavily in voice of the customer initiatives do pretty well. We did some research a few years ago about the best CX organizations, and that was a big piece of it. They had allocated resources, they had a designated leader for CX, they were investing in customer understanding, and as a result, they're able to do more. I think if they really understand what customers want, they can do more and be able to serve them better. One piece of research that we did that my colleague David Furlonger read, it's our annual growth survey research. They found that high growth companies are much more likely to understand customers and act on them quickly, those insights before compared to some of the lower growth organizations. So it's very consistent with what we've seen, Alexis, that organizations that are customer centric, that invest in customer understanding, actually end up delivering better experiences. So what I'm saying is that's the minority of clients that we talk to. A lot of it is, well, I just do 2 surveys a year, that's enough. And what we're saying is, if you really want to be customer centric, the voice of the customer has to be a major initiative at the organization.
All comes back to customer, whether it's human, AI, machine, knowing who they are, knowing who you're talking to, making sure you have that messaging corrected. But at the end of the day, it still is, it all comes back to the customer.
It does, it does. And what's also interesting from our CEO research is that the priority of customers will fluctuate. So 2 years ago, customers were number 9 on the CEO's list. Last year, they're number 6, and in our more recent work, it's dropped down a bit. So again, that communicates. If customers are the number 6, 7, 8, 9, 10th priority, what does that tell you the rest of the organization? So a lot of times, as we know, uh, leaders look to the CEO for guidance and direction about where they spend their time. And if they say that customers are number 6 or number 8, that's communicating something.
Right. There's a whole list of priorities to get to before you even begin to think about the customer then at that point and
Right.
all the other fire drills that can come up. So as we wrap up, do you have a bold prediction about the future of customer experiences as AI progresses? Anything else to kind of look ahead towards?
So, what I would say is organizations that can actually balance the humanity and the technology when it comes to experience will be the ones that will win ahead. These are organizations that maybe have a separate group set up to deal just with machines, in addition to really understanding how their human customers think and what their needs are and the behaviors, et cetera. So, I would say that to me, organizations that can really invest in both areas and balance both areas will end up being much more successful than organizations that don't.
Thanks for all of that, Don. Anything else that you feel like people walking away from this conversation shouldn't miss that we didn't touch already?
I would say remember the humanity. So
Yeah.
we love technology, we love AI. It's really cool, but let's not lose sight of what it means to be a human being and what that really means. So
Yeah.
when we did the keynote a few years ago, we titled it "We Shape AI, AI Shapes Us," and I firmly believe that we are not just reacting to the technology; we have to
Mhm.
shape it at the same time.
Yeah, I remember that IT Sim keynote talking about, move from that tool to teammate mindset,
Yeah,
that continued focus on relationships. It was great.
yeah, it was fun.
Thanks for listening to this latest episode of ThinkCast featuring Gartner Distinguished VP Analyst Don Scheibenreif. If you'd like to learn more about our topic today, visit Gartner.com and click the links in the notes. ThinkCast will be back wherever you listen to podcasts a week from today. In the meantime, please rate, review, subscribe, and share with a colleague so neither of you will miss it.